Good morning, everyone. My name is Sarah Rodriguez, and I'm with Bids and Tenders. And today I'll be talking about how eProcurement can help municipalities facing budget shortfalls. I'll just do a brief agenda. So I'm going to do an introduction on the pressures facing municipalities today and what eProcurement is, the challenges of lost revenues and how administration and time savings, competitive bidding, transparency, supporting community suppliers, and cooperative purchasing through eProcurement can help with those challenges. We'll also discuss the supplier pay model and how eProcurement can help recover from budget shortfalls, with time for questions at the end. Today's pressures are that municipalities are trying to do more, but with fewer resources than ever before. The global COVID-19 pandemic has rocked the business world, and government agencies are no exception. Between remote work requirements, border closures, and increased demand for medical goods and services, procurement has become significantly more complicated. Governments worldwide are facing the imperative to expedite procurement projects faster and safer, while meeting all legal requirements for transparency, security, and auditability. Procurement departments are purchasing larger contract amounts across a greater variety of sectors more often and with fewer staff. We'll demonstrate how maintaining and even improving procurement operations amidst a threat or crisis while seeing a significant return on investment is made possible with an eProcurement platform. There are significant costs to poor procurement processes. The International Association for Contract and Commercial Management estimates poor procurement and contract management costs organizations over 10% of their annual spend. Contributors to this include an inadequate number of suppliers, inconsistent and poorly structured procurement templates, difficulties in evaluating on the same criteria and baseline information, improper supplier selection, scope ambiguity and translation from bid posting through evaluation and contract, issues in contract compliance and missed contract renewal opportunities. Avoiding these pitfalls saves budget for additional programs, services, capital investments, and hiring. One of the ways you can avoid these pitfalls is with eProcurement. As recovery from COVID-19 begins to take shape, municipal governments need to focus on ways they can shrink budget deficits while also continuing to serve citizens. Like private sector organizations that were able to pivot product offerings and move to delivering services online, governments will also need to look for these opportunities within their departments to overcome a variety of challenges. eProcurement solutions can provide a comprehensive tool that improves the efficiency throughout the procurement process to interruption. eProcurement across our clients and many others is improving the speed and quality of procurement, ensuring budget and resource efficiency, supporting automated processes with frictionless collaboration, maintaining transparency, fairness, and accountability, and helping resilient communities. Now, municipalities, I'm sure I don't need to explain the lost revenues. Since the global pandemic hit North America in March 2020, those revenues have been slashed. Experts estimate 10 to 20% of city-level revenue loss as a direct result of the COVID-19 impact on things like transit fares, parking fees, bylaw fines, community offerings such as swimming lessons, adult education and centers, and venue rentals. Canadian municipalities are looking at $12 billion in shortfalls, and American municipalities at a whopping $400 billion. And that's without considering the impact of additional lockdowns. Those natural responses to municipal budget shortfalls are service cuts and tax increases, but another opportunity exists in finding efficiencies. Despite cost cuts, municipalities will continue spending tax dollars on goods, services, and infrastructure projects. Switching to an eProcurement platform can save agencies 20% of those total procurement costs, while also shaving up to 35% off the procurement cycle, which can provide additional savings. Some of those savings come from administration and time. A lot of time is wasted in procurement specifically. Consider the time spent on building bid documents without templates, tracking procurement submissions in huge Excel spreadsheets or on paper, scanning those paper submissions and storing huge email submitted files, reviewing and rejecting non-compliant bids, compiling comparison data without copy-paste or data entry errors, managing insurance certificates, collecting bonds, and finding old tender and contract documents when needed to resolve contract concerns or disputes. The impact of eProcurement on that administration and time is significant. Switching to eProcurement eliminates most of these manual tasks, saving procurement teams an average of 60 minutes per bid submission. That can add up to hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, which can be better spent managing projects, reviewing contracts, and building vendor relationships. eProcurement time savings ensures that even as responsibilities increase, small teams are able to manage. One example is a case study from SOURCEWELL. SOURCEWELL uses the power of cooperative purchasing to meet the needs of over 50,000 public and nonprofit entities. By switching from a paper-based submission process to bids and tenders, SOURCEWELL no longer wastes time handling and scanning proposals. Savings attributed to just the cost of wasted time in the first year were estimated at $20,000. As you can see, Chris Robinson, their procurement manager, says, now our team is much more agile in running procurements, evaluating bids and awarding contracts to the point where the time and cost savings are better than we imagined. But the most welcome surprise is the time we can now spend on value-added tasks that enable our agency to innovate in other ways. Another aspect of eProcurement is competitive bidding. Advertising opportunities in traditional ways, such as the newspaper or your individual municipality websites, generally results in fewer bids. Key suppliers in your area may not even be aware of your opportunities. Bid takers can't see who else is bidding or how many other bidders there are. And even when many bids are available, the most competitive bid may be rejected due to non-compliance. This is particularly prevalent in things like paper submissions. What we've seen with our eProcurement clients is that bid price reduction is an excellent factor. Citizen needs and infrastructure stimulus mean that procurement will continue to happen and dollars will keep being spent. What eProcurement platforms can help with is making the best use of those dollars. Bids and tenders clients have seen that their bid submissions and competitiveness of pricing reduced annual spend by 10 to 20%. The increased exposure using bid posting and notification systems ensures that all of your vendors and even suppliers that you've never worked with before but are available in your area are aware of what opportunities you have. All those project details can be posted publicly with no login or registration required to read documents. You can display the registered plan takers to the public to promote competition between vendors. And you can actively engage your vendors and surrounding associations for onboarding and training ahead of the launch. At Bids and Tenders, we stress vendor onboarding as a main facet of ensuring the success of your eProcurement platform. It takes training, communications, a support line, and active outreach to make sure that your vendors know where to find your opportunities. One study is Placer County in California. They were struggling to get enough bids and with rejecting competitive bids that were not compliant. By switching to bids and tenders, within months they started receiving a higher quantity of bids that were both competitive and compliant. Their bid quality was improved, bids were more complete and easier to evaluate. As Brett Wood, their purchasing manager, has said, they've always struggled to get enough bids. They'd put out requests for bids on multi-million-dollar contracts that would offer 3 to 4 years of work and still not hit a threshold for submissions. Getting bids and tenders has changed that for them. Fairness and transparency may not seem like they have a direct link to reducing budget shortfalls. Taxpayer accountability is a huge portion of municipal budgets. Along with wasting time, there are often costs associated with storing documentation, shipping it to auditors, and potential legal fees. By posting opportunities within an eProcurement platform, documentation on the bid submissions, evaluations, and selection is all stored online and easily available to auditors. These additional costs can be eliminated to free up funds for service delivery. With eProcurement, submissions, evaluations, and selection are all tracked and stored online. Templates, compliance checkers, and evaluation scorecards ensure the bidding process is fair for everyone. Documentation can be emailed to auditors with the click of a button, allowing for no-contact remote audits. eProcurement platforms keep documentation in the cloud in a secure format. When you're evaluating an eProcurement platform, make sure to check for their ISO certification. Supporting community suppliers, particularly local and diverse businesses, may be part of your municipality's mandate, but also has economic benefits. The traditional RFP process can disadvantage smaller businesses. Consider the costs of bidding, designing, printing, transportation, and shipping costs for complex paper submissions. Some people estimate the cost of bidding at thousands of dollars, which local businesses can ill afford. Supporting the local community helps people and businesses within that community to thrive, which in turn ensures that citizens can continue to live in the community and can continue to pay their taxes within that community. Thriving local economies help municipalities recover faster. E-procurement platforms level the playing field. Businesses can get all the bid documents online without driving to pick documents up in limited business hours. Submissions are also online, eliminating the costs of shipping large binders of documents to the venue. By setting up templates for data entry and questions, municipalities can easily compare every bid submission without being burdened by superfluous information and over-designed proposals. The evaluation criteria can take diversity, community ties, and business size into account and award accordingly. Another factor of e-procurement is cooperative purchasing. Often municipalities are operating in a silo. Neighboring municipalities don't necessarily communicate on procurements. Smaller municipalities pay a premium for smaller quantities because they don't have the benefit of bulk discounts or projects at scale. Municipalities within one region may use 10 different systems, making it more difficult and costly for suppliers to navigate. Suppliers may only be registered on one system and not receive applications or look for bids on other systems. That's why a bid system will be able to post one bid opportunity to benefit multiple locations. E-procurement makes cooperative purchasing easier, since municipalities on the same system can post one bid to benefit multiple locations. E-procurement can give real-time visibility into government spending, so municipalities can aggregate opportunities to combine their buying power. Suppliers in a state or province may want to work with several municipalities. They will be more likely to do so if everyone is on the same system, not only because then they are notified about those opportunities, but also because then they don't have to worry about different subscriptions, different notification systems, different ways of bidding. Since we're talking about suppliers and their subscription options, let's discuss the supplier pay model. Some organizations and government agencies have failed to implement e-procurement prior to the pandemic because of a perceived cost of doing so. We have covered some of the cost savings, but let's shift our focus to the cost of investment. The primary cost for e-procurement and contract management systems is the licensing cost. There are typically two pricing models available for e-procurement systems. The buyer pay model is the one that would have the cost associated with you. There's no cost to the vendors, but the buyer organization pays either an annual fee or a per organization or license fee per buyer. An organization with several buyers could pay from $5,000 to $15,000 annually, depending on the e-procurement provider. What we generally suggest for municipalities and government agencies is the vendor pay model. There is no cost to your organization for implementation, hosting, and support, but vendors are required to register at a cost to submit a bid. Note that vendors should be able to read and access all bid information and documents for free. This is not always the case, but something we really look for when shopping for an e-procurement platform. A price example would be $50 per year for unlimited submissions across multiple organizations. Different e-procurement platforms offer different levels of pricing. A lot of the time that's based on location or which organizations they want to bid on or the number of bids per year. For example, at bids and tenders, that $175 per year subscription fee actually lets you bid an unlimited number of times across any organization within bids and tenders. The city of Brantford expressed some concerns that some of their vendors would not want to adopt the system. They were originally concerned that vendors would be hesitant, particularly with the vendor pay model. However, within 6 months, the city of Brantford's bids and tenders platform logged 865 registered vendors, 270 online bid submissions, and approximately 1,000 contracts. They estimate that the efficiencies obtained through their system has saved over $45,000 annually in resource efforts alone, not even in cost savings. By engaging their immediate vendor community, we were able to assuage any concerns that they had. The vendors actually were very excited about moving to bids and tenders because it did mean that their job was easier in terms of submitting bids. They no longer had to drive to specific city hall locations in certain hours to make sure that their bid was received on time. They didn't have to wait in any long lines. So actually it was very well received by the vendors despite the small subscription fee. How does this all add up to recovering from budget shortfalls? Well, in terms of annual savings, we know that procurement professionals are being asked to do more with less. Upcoming infrastructure and stimulus spending combined with budget shortfalls will make saving money on procurement an even higher priority. With the difficult economic times, supply chain disruption, and more remote working requirements, e-procurement is one of the highest priorities for the National Association of State Procurement Officials. There is no one solution to recovering from budget shortfalls, particularly in the current precarious economic and health environment we're facing. Municipalities must consider all their options to maintain service delivery, despite budget difficulties, to effectively execute their responsibility to their citizens. Increasing the efficiency of procurement spend in government means more money is available for those additional projects and increased service delivery. For example, TRILLIUM Lakelands District School Board was slated to complete 30 projects per year, but with efficiencies from bids and tenders, eProcurement was able to complete 6 to 7 additional projects each year with the same budget. If you recognize that budgets might be lower this year to try and make up for budget deficits, you would still be able to deliver those existing 30 projects while saving money. The real return on investment for government agencies is seeing how the same budget can be used to deliver a better experience for the community. Just a few more details on that TRILLIUM Lakelands case. So they were able to achieve the same results with about 18% less spend, leaving $3 to $4 million budget for additional programs. So posting on the website versus posting on bids and tenders, difficulty getting submissions, a lack of competition. All of those things were solved by eProcurement, and they were able to still do that with a $3 to $4 million that they had available for additional projects. Across bids and tenders, we have some efficiency examples that our average clients are seeing. Consider that on average, there are 21 questions submitted per bid. In the traditional process, you might actually have to call and let everyone know what the answer to that question is, or at least let everyone know that there was an addenda available for those. You may be answering the same question multiple times if different vendors are calling with that question. With eProcurement, you can now answer that question once online and post it for everyone. On average, we're seeing 2.3 addenda per bid. So in the old system, you might actually have to email, call, or mail out those addenda to registered bid takers, assuming you knew who they were. With eProcurement, you can send them automatically to registered bidders. eProcurement platforms with a compliance checker, like bids and tenders, offer 100% compliant bids. That means you're not wasting time reviewing and rejecting non-compliant bids, but more importantly, you're not seeing bids that are competitive, the lowest price, the best offer, that you cannot accept because they were not compliant. So with the compliance checker, suppliers are not able to submit bids that do not meet all of your requirements. Whether you're online or in person, we're seeing 76% of bids submitted in the last 10 minutes before closing. That hasn't changed with eProcurement. Suppliers are what they are, but what it does mean is that there's no extra labor required to accommodate last-minute submissions. There's no lines at your counter of paper. There's no checking of date stamps on emails. There's no server overloads with receiving huge files by email. So all of that is still done online with timestamps and date stamps so you can see exactly when things were submitted, and it will not allow vendors to submit bids after closing, so you don't have to worry about rejecting late bids. The average bids and tenders client, as I mentioned before, is seeing 10 to 20% procurement cost savings across their entire procurement budget, and 35% faster procurement cycles. These often result in significant savings, so it's more difficult to measure them. Thank you for listening, and now I'd love to address your questions.